haven't done a movie review in years, and I know there's not many of you, but for those of you who have watched my videos in the past, the notification of this video being uploaded was probably a surprise, and honestly, the reason for me not uploading for so long is because my passion for movies was lost. I'm very passionate about acting, which has been my main focus, and being a part of film in that way. And I enjoyed acting in the short films and plays I've acted in over the past couple years, but analyzing movies in general, which was something I was very happy doing years back, well, that died with the coming of COVID. I explained in a video in 2020 that I didn't want to talk in detail about this because I wanted to keep things positive, but the truth is, everything had come to a halt during that time for all of us. And while there was a lot of good for me in my life since then, the decline in my love for film as time went on was very evident, and I really wish that wasn't the case. Before all of this, at the end of the day, when I wasn't spending time with the people I loved, when I wasn't going out, and when I had nothing else to keep busy doing, movies would reignite the fire in me that I needed. I had forgotten this, and thus would never partake in the hobby that always gave me inspiration and hope for my future as an artist. And eventually, without realizing that is the reason for this, it started to drain me. I never thought of analyzing film and escaping into the variety of complex storylines just a few clicks away as an option, since I hadn't truly been into it in a very long time. And it definitely impacted my mental health in a bad way, and caused an increase for the need of dopamine from much more unhealthy sources. Recently, all it really took, I realized, was sitting down, putting something on that I potentially might enjoy, and trying my best to get lost in it without any distractions. It felt like I had received some sort of cure, and that I was truly starting to find a deeper meaning in my life again. Things have been so much better recently ever since that passion came back, but since I don't want to dive back into YouTube with such an intensity that I'll leave again, I'll strictly limit the content I create to be about films that truly remind me why I love movies so much, and why I'm so passionate about wanting to be a part of them for the rest of my life. So if I see a new release that really speaks to me and I really want to talk about it, you'll see a video for that uploaded. While I had again found my passion for seeing more movies through watching a few recently, it was yesterday, when I watched Nosferatu, that I was inspired to create YouTube content again. Throughout the entire runtime of this film, I was fully immersed. This is one of the most well-shot, well-acted, and all-around well-made films I've seen in a very long time. And it's movies like this that make me want to keep coming back to the theater. So today, I wanted to do a bit of a review or analysis, whatever you want to call it, just talking passionately, as I used to, about how much I love it. This video may contain light spoilers. I doubt I'd be ruining much though, but if you'd rather go in more blind, you have been warned. Nosferatu is Robert Eggers' latest film, and even though I've heard a great deal about his directorial works, the only other movie I watched of his was The Lighthouse, which I did review back in 2019 when it came out. And I'll tell you right now, even though that film was incredibly well made, it did not leave an impact on me quite like this film did. Now I want to start off this review by saying that even though I have seen quite a bit of talk about this movie, I don't believe that I've seen anybody have a high enough opinion of this film. And this could honestly easily be because it draws inspiration from older versions of the storyline, and maybe its lack of originality is what docks points off of it for certain people from thinking as highly of it as I do. So I should mention then that I have not seen any other rendition of Nosferatu or Dracula other than Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman. And I have to say, even though it is inspired by the novel that is the original storyline of Dracula, frankly, I fucking hate that movie. I was absolutely bored out of my mind watching it, and I feel like me saying that would definitely piss people off who are fans of that original source material, but I can't help how I felt. Now, the reason I say that as a disclaimer is because an argument can probably be made that I love this film as much as I do because I haven't seen or read all the other versions it draws inspiration from, so it feels fresh to me, I guess. But the thing is, I genuinely don't think my opinion on this film would change, even if it was a shot-for-shot remake of a previous storyline. What I loved about this film was not related to originality. It was simply the brilliantly depicted grittiness and realism of the struggles these characters had gone through throughout it. I feel like a lot of people will have something to say along the lines of the film either not being scary enough or not enough in the realm of fantasy that they were expecting. But I think that the deliberate choices that Robert Eggers decided to make to prioritize more authenticity really added to the emotional weight of the film and really made me care about the characters. What it lacks in countless vampire-related scares you might expect from a more mainstream movie throughout its runtime, it makes up for in great character moments. And what it lacks in the wonder and escapism of the fantasy elements that there could have been more of with the villainous title character, it makes up for with more relatable stakes and a more cohesive plot rather than what could potentially feel messy in a film with such a grounded tone. As I mentioned earlier, all of the acting is phenomenal. I'll start with the actor playing the title character, Bill Skarsgård. Oh my god. I've been a huge fan of this guy ever since seeing his performance in It, and while I do think he excels in other roles than just monsters like Pennywise and now Count Orlok, this movie once again proves why he is such a good choice for these kinds of roles, because he absolutely disappears behind this character. He was completely unrecognizable, as many others have been saying, and while I have to hand it to the amazing makeup that was done to create the character, Skarsgård nailed it with his performance. His voice is extremely unnerving, and all of his subtle movements were quite terrifying and only added to the film's sense of dread in the best possible way. So even though there wasn't a ton of scenes involving him with a main focus on scaring the audience, the scenes that did have that intention were absolutely horrifying. Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, and Aaron Taylor Johnson were all incredible in the film. The level of struggle these actors had to showcase in the movie was executed so successfully that I consistently found myself forgetting that I was watching a movie. Now, I haven't heard enough talk about this, but besides Bill Skarsgård, the standout performance here for me was Willem Dafoe. He was an absolute scene stealer whenever he was on screen. Eggers did something very interesting with the writing of his character that I just wasn't expecting. Even though I think that saying that Dafoe's character was a comic relief is an oversimplification of his brilliance, his character provided some of the only bits of levity to the film in an otherwise depressing watch. And while this would usually be too much of a clash in tones in most cases, it actually worked extremely well here. Professor Albin Eberhardt wasn't just around for the sake of being funny. The comedy in his character was generally found in how his ideologies would so frankly and abruptly contrast those of the characters around him, as he generally didn't need any time at all to be convinced of the existence of demonic entities. Not only was this a good laugh for the audience, but it provided a lot of complexity within all the characters as they all struggled to find a reason as to why they were continuing to experience all of these unimaginable horrors and losing their loved ones so quickly. And eventually, as time went on, they couldn't help but slowly get closer and closer to giving into the possibility of what Eberhardt proposed in the first place. The one character to seemingly never accept this reality ends up being the most mentally broken of them all, this character being Friedrich Harding, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. And what this guy ends up doing after losing everything, I don't even think I'm allowed to say it on YouTube. It isn't something I can justify doing, but man, this guy gets put through the fucking ringer in this film, so I can't say I'm too surprised at where he ends up. Now, obviously, no one can get through talking about this movie without mentioning how visually stunning it is. This film was shot so beautifully that it's ironic how fucked up it really can be at times. I found myself constantly in jaw-dropping awe at virtually every frame. And even in moments where there wasn't a lot happening, the cinematography was enough to keep me on the edge of my seat. That isn't to say I found any scene in this film to be too uneventful or unnecessary. There wasn't a single scene in this entire movie, in fact, that I found to be out of place, and perhaps that's the best compliment I could possibly give it. Overall, Nosferatu was an absolutely incredible movie theater experience that reminded me why I love going to see films on the big screen. It had incredible characters, amazing stakes that had me on the edge of my seat, an insanely compelling villain, great performances, and the cinematography in motion pictures just doesn't get better than this. If you're a movie fan, especially a horror fan, you do not want to miss this. See it on the biggest screen possible, because they knocked it out of the park and deserve all the box office sales they get. Nosferatu is a masterpiece, and I'm going to give it an A+. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this is probably some form of weird nostalgia for some of you who have seen my videos in the past for me to be saying this kind of outro, but I truly do appreciate the support, and if another movie comes my way that I feel really speaks to me that I want to make a video on, you'll see that uploaded. If not, I guess just stay tuned until that happens. Thank you again, and peace out.